I'm here at the Blockchain Innovation Conference 2019 here in Amsterdam, and I'm here with David Birch, advisor and commentator on digital financial services. That's a great title. You've just delivered the closing keynote, and somebody said to me, you stood in front of a whole bunch of very large companies, lots of nerds, lots of blockchain gurus, lots of AI people, and basically ridiculed all of them. Tell me how that comes about.
I wouldn't say ridiculed. I would say I tried to refocus them.
Okay, how did you do that?
I made the point that a lot of I think in some ways quite lazy thinking about what we would do with AI and how we might connect this with the blockchain needed challenging, and I think I have the facts to challenge it. So I was really focusing on what positive things could we build using AI with the blockchain that we couldn't do another way.
Do you have an example?
Well, I was focused very much on what people call smart contracts.
Yep.
The little, you can think of them as like apps that run on the blockchain.
Yep.
And they're notorious because all sorts of programming errors creep in and cause a great deal of chaos. I mean, once you've put something on the blockchain, you can't change it. It's
That's
immutable.
kind of the point. Yeah.
That's kind of the point of it. So programming errors have disastrous consequences. And if you look at the work that's being done in using AIs to write software, particularly in very specific domains, I think you can see at least the feasibility, maybe not today, but soon, the feasibility of having computers write the smart contract code so that you know that it's correct and complete. So instead of taking a human being and trying to explain the business logic to them, we find ways to code the business logic, and then the computers write the software.
So software that writes software, essentially.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think there is some evidence that, again, in certain limited domains, software can already write better software than people can.
But surely, I mean, we're hearing a lot about ethics in AI at the moment, and rightly so, because this is unexplored territory. But can we get to a point where we can trust a machine to write a set of code, to write a set of code, to write a set of code?
Well, I think you're certainly right to point out that we can't allow this to be unregulated, especially in the areas that we're talking about where the smart contract is moving real money around. I mean, it has fiduciary responsibilities and therefore will be regulated. So the interplay between the regulators and the AIs and the code, which I am absolutely not qualified to comment on, seems to me to be a reasonably fruitful area to look for some cooperation and some very new ways of solving some old problems. So I'm optimistic about that.
And a little bird tells me that you seem to be, without calling yourself a trend watcher, somehow always ahead of the curve. Some time ago you were talking about tokenization, and now everybody's talking about, and even better, starting with tokenization.
Well, look, I've been a little bit lucky with making some guesses around this kind of area, but I think it's because I see it from a kind of more institutional perspective. When I was first getting involved with Bitcoin and blockchain and things like that, it wasn't really at the sort of Bitcoin bottom up. It was from the institutional top down. It was looking at the financial services infrastructure and looking at where blockchain might help. So I think that sort of gave me a different start, and in some ways perhaps a calmer response. But yes, I've guessed right a couple of times. So I hope I'm guessing right with this.
I come from a supply chain background, so I know there's two types of forecasts: lucky ones and wrong ones. So I'll give you the credit there. But if I ask you to pull out your crystal ball now and start thinking, I don't know, 5 or 10 years ahead from now, what are you seeing that perhaps other people aren't thinking about yet?
If you're looking at the sort of 10-year horizon, I mean, I am very fascinated on the impact of AI in financial services. But in that 10-year horizon, I'm more interested in what customers will be doing with AI more than what banks will be doing with AI.
And when you say customers, do you mean consumers or do you mean business to business?
No, I mean consumers, because Google and... No, I mean consumers, because Google and Amazon and all these kind of people are going to put AI in the pocket of all consumers.
Yeah.
And so the way that banks interact with consumers is going to become the way that bank AIs interact with consumer AIs and regulator AIs. And trying to sort of structure financial services around that is a really interesting challenge, and I look at it from the technological point of view, but obviously I work with companies that are looking at it more from the business point of view, and we're trying to put the two things together. So when you start looking 10 years out, it's AI without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, that's interesting. I'd never thought about it. So I'm going to have a device in my pocket that has AIs running from fundamentally different perspectives. So I can have, as you said, services from the Big Four that are trying to do things for me which make my life better, that obviously make them significantly better and richer.
I can guarantee that my AI won't care about your bank television advert.
No.
It won't care that you sponsor some football stadium. It won't care about your brand and your history.
Right.
So therefore, the relationship between the bank and the consumer must change.
Right.
And I think it's interesting to begin exploring that now.
So will I as a consumer actually be involved in that, or do you think it'll be AIs talking between themselves to figure out what they collectively think is the right answer?
Banking's quite boring.
Right.
And the bits that aren't boring, like choosing a pension and things like that, are too complicated for me to understand. I don't understand it. So if you have a bank chatbot talking to me about it, I won't understand it any more than if the guy at the bank was talking to me about it.
Right.
I don't want to be in the loop. I want the world's most super intelligent, avaricious, ruthless AI sorting out my pension on my behalf.
Yeah, funny, I was just talking to Ben Waldring from the Bencom group in Groningen here in the Netherlands, and he was talking about something that sounds quite similar. Think about all the contracts that you have, whether that's a lease contract or a health insurance contract, or it doesn't matter, telephone contract. And one of the things that they're working on is saying, we as human beings are really bad at managing that stuff, and there is a myriad of options every time we have a renewal that are designed to bamboozle us, and that they believe AI is the way to solve that.
I think it's generally true. At the moment, financial services, whether it's banking, insurance, pensions, anything else, are about companies selling things to people. But in 10 years' time, it will be about AIs selling things to AIs. And so the selling points will be completely different.
And is there not a chance that will completely flip the market? So instead of me being sold to, it'll be me offering, for example, I need some insurance, health insurance. So instead of me going to the offerings, I'll be saying, hey, I'm due for a renewal soon. Come at me with your best offer. But not me saying it, my AI doing that on my behalf.
Or Facebook saying it, or Amazon, because they have all your data. So, yes, I'm not smart enough to know how it will end up, but I can see it can't be the way it is now. It just can't.
Yeah. And we got a couple of minutes left if you want to use it. If I put a large amount of money, and I don't know what large is in your head, is that 5 million, 50 million, 500 million, on the table now, and said, do whatever you like with it, but it has to involve blockchain, AI, this kind of related group of technologies that we see now coming together. How would you spend it?
I would find the quantum computing research group at a university and get them to build me a quantum computer which I could use to get the bitcoins out of the Satoshi wallet, which would then make me rich beyond the dreams of avarice, and I would never have to think about bitcoins and blockchains again. And so when someone's got a working quantum computer, finding private keys, given the public keys, becomes the
number one goal.
A very different issue. So yes, I would spend if I was a giant investor with tons of money, I'd spend it all on quantum computers.
And so imagine you did that and you cracked the code and you had Satoshi's wealth, which is unspendable today. What would you do with that?
$10 billion.
What would you do with that?
I'd play Dungeons and Dragons all day like any normal person.
That sounds like a perfectly valid answer. And what would you do with the money?
Oh, I don't know. Buy a football team.
Buy a football team. So you would just enjoy it.
What else do bored Silicon Valley billionaires do other than buy football teams and basketball teams? Oh, and I'd have to, if I did have the $10 billion, then I'd have to invest some of it in perpetual life as well, of course. Because if I was like a Mark Zuckerberg or something like that, I'd spend every penny I've got on life extension.
Why do you find that interesting?
Well, because if you're a billionaire, what would be a higher priority for spending than living forever if you're a billionaire?
And is that something you would like to do, live forever?
Well, if I had $10 billion, very probably.
Yeah, interesting. And I think that's going to be happening. I don't know if immortality is in our lifetime, but I think life extension for sure.
Immortality for people who can afford it, possibly.
Yeah, that's slightly worrying.
But that will be me with my quantum computer, so I'm not bothered.
Perfect. I think that's a perfect way to end. If anybody out there knows how to deliver quantum computing to hack Satoshi's private keys, then...
there's $10 billion in there.
And that's just at today's rate, and it's going up every day at the moment. We'll see how that plays out. David, how can these folks find you if they know how to crack Satoshi's codes for you?
Twitter at G.W Birch.
Thanks. I'm Nick Stevens here at the Blockchain Innovation Conference 2019 with David Birch. Sir, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Goodbye.